So as I'm sitting here in stop-and-go traffic, I figured the best thing I could possibly do would be to distract myself with a video. Because that's what you do when you're in stop-and-go traffic. You do as many distracting things as possible, like pick your nose or watch videos, etc. But as I'm sitting here, I am contemplating to myself, what could the difference be between the government censoring you and, let's say, a company censoring you? What is the functional difference between, I don't know, a police department censoring you and YouTube censoring you? Here's what I think the difference is. The difference is that with the police department, you have an active recourse, a means of recourse to attempt to correct the situation. You can seek administrative remedies. Perhaps you can seek judicial remedies. You can elect or attempt to elect new city council members to get them to overturn the decision by, I think in our example, it was the police department to censor. There are lots of options available for you to oppose or remove or otherwise seek redress for censorship by a governmental agency, by the government. On the other hand, there is essentially no means to seek redress or to get a company like YouTube, Google, Alphabet Corporation, I think they call it, is the parent company of Google. There is no way that you can get YouTube to not censor. If they're deciding to censor, and they do, you'll see in live streams deleted by YouTube moderator or Google moderator. Google has removed various websites from search results. You can't literally search up certain websites. And whether or not you think it's justified, it is censorship. And there is next to no recourse. They have the right to conduct their business in the way they want, and while certainly you can attempt to use a competitor, competitors to YouTube are practically non-existent. And competitors that spring up that cater to things that Google and Silicon Valley dislike have been demonetized and essentially vilified. What was that? Hatreon, the Patreon alternative. They stopped running transactions for them. The Stripe and PayPal, I think. PayPal stopped running transactions for a lot of things. What was that? There's a new maker support that they're trying to deplatform by not allowing them to do financial transactions. Gab.ai, I think. Again, they're not allowing them to do financial transactions, etc., etc., etc. So there aren't really a lot of alternatives for YouTube, and you'll certainly not get the audience. And yet there are people out there in this community who think that that's fun and exciting. And then there's also people in this community who think it's awesome to have Discord censor people, and who are seeking to have the government censor people. Since I don't believe that there is a functional distinction, a real distinction between having a corporation censor your speech, and you know, that's another interesting thing. You know, calling someone's employer, I would never do it. I mean, I don't care if you call mine; it's not going to get you anywhere. But trying to use someone's employer to censor their speech is essentially trying to use a corporation for censorship. There's just no justification to want corporate censorship that would not equally apply to the government. If you're in favor of corporate censorship, then how do you draw the distinction to the government? The government has a little more power than a corporation, sure, but it's not to say that the corporation lacks power. The corporation has YouTube has a ton of power. Discord has a ton of power. They could censor. YouTube does censor. So far Discord has not. It just boggles my mind that somebody would be actively petitioning Discord to censor. Because think about this. This is what idiots don't do. Whenever you create a tool can be used for good or bad. Guns are a tool. Guns can be used to do good. Guns are used to do good all the time. The presence of firearms has prevented countless instances of assault, battery, robbery, things like that. Just simply having someone in the area, on the premises, in sight, with a firearm can and does prevent people from committing harm, committing violence. Additionally, guns have been used to stop people who have decided to commit violence anyway. Gunmen come in. I mean, Google videos on YouTube. There's countless times. And that's not even taking into account all the times the police have used firearms to end dangerous situations where, you know, to capture or kill murderers, robbers, rapists, etc. Hi, Earl, thinking of you. So censorship is a tool. Once you give somebody a tool, they want to use it. They will use it. You give someone a hammer, they're going to... give a kid a hammer. He's going to hit things with it. Because that's what you do with a hammer. And if all you have is a hammer, then you're going to beat the shit out of stuff. All you have is a hammer. Everything looks like a nail. So you give a corporation a tool, censorship, and they're going to want to use it. So you advocate for censorship in a situation that you don't like. Oh, I don't like what this person had to say. I want to silence him. I want this corporation to silence him because from my subjective viewpoint, what that person is saying is rude, impolite, abusive, harassing, violent. I've heard people call words violence before. It amuses me. I would never take away your right to call words violent, but I would at the same time vehemently disagree that words can be violence. They are not violence. They have never been violence. But you don't like what someone is saying. You, instead of rebutting them, instead of walking away, you want to silence them. You don't want anybody else to hear what these people have to say. So you go to the company or the government, like if you contact Trooper Wallace, to silence speech because you think the Pennsylvania State Troopers are going to care that somebody's posting publicly available documents in a forum. But if you go to the government or you go to a corporation to silence them, what is going to prevent the government or the corporation from listening to the next person who comes along who thinks your speech is abusive, is harassment, is violence, is impolite, is rude? Because I don't know if you've watched auditor videos, but judging by the response of the public, of the greater public, as is evidenced by news articles, by the reactions of people, of the public who witness these interactions, what auditors do is rude, is impolite, is abusive, is harassment. What would prevent the government? I mean, you seem to think it's right to shut other people's speech down using the government, using corporations. What would prevent them from shutting your speech down? Do you want that? Is that a result you're willing to live with? Because I got to tell you, at some point in time, it's going to happen to you. There's that old saying, you know, first they came for these people and I said nothing. And then they came for these people and I said nothing. And then they came for me and nobody said anything because there's no one left to say anything. And while that is somewhat hyperbolic, it is also grounded in reality. If we allow the government, if we allow corporations to censor us, if we actively call for it, we're allowing it. And if we allow it, then they will eventually use it on us. Because no matter what you say, somebody will be offended by it. And if you call for silencing other people, then other people will be justified in calling to silence you. So think about that. All you people who are out there supporting the moderators or the auditors who are moderating their chats, who are actively trying to silence critics like me, like other people, you think that protective order that the family Roth is applying for against Sergeant Interlide, whatever. Do you think that is because they are actually scared of what he's going to do? I mean, they've lived in a small town with him for forever and a day. This isn't something new. He didn't come armed. He didn't come threatening violence. Do you think they're scared of him, or do you think they're trying to silence him? Think about that. Are they scared of him, or are they trying to silence him? I guarantee you they're trying to silence him. They're trying to bully him into silence. They think that if he can't contact them or something, that he won't be able to speak about it, that they can say that he's doing some sort of internet harassment or whatever. So when you support people like that, people who will moderate their channel, try to keep people on topic, who silence people who bring up outstanding warrants. I mean, they're not saying, they can't say it's not true, because like if you call on Springer, call the LA County Sheriff. Call him. LASD. www.lasd. I think it's a .com. It might be a .org. Call him. Ask him if there's a bench warrant out for James Allen Springer. See what they have to say. See what they have to say. oh, you're releasing private information. No, it's not. Having a warrant out for your arrest is not a private information. That's not private. They will oftentimes put up wanted ads in, well, they used to at least, put up wanted ads in post offices and places like that. If you have a warrant, that's public. You've got a warrant. Trying to silence people who bring it up, like, what does that do? Number one, it doesn't make the warrant go away. And number two, it makes you look ridiculous because you have a warrant and you're scared about people talking about it. Whatever. But the people who support these anti-free speech authoritarian auditors should really think about it. Should honestly take their time and think about what they're doing. Think about the motivation. Think about what's important to them. If all that's important to you is pissing off police officers, then fine. I mean, then support these guys because they piss police officers off. You know, knock yourself out. Have a great day. But if free speech is actually important to you, then consider it. Consider the possibility that these people aren't the people you want to support. There are still auditors out there who are free speech. There are still some. And support them. Make it obvious. I know everybody, well, I can't say that everybody is still wanting to watch all these audits, because if you'll notice, the auditors themselves are getting desperate. They're throwing in fail. Cop was owned. They're trying to use gimmicky, grabby headlines to get views. Compilation video of cop fails. Compilation of abusive cops. But there are still some auditors out there who are free speech, who are pro free speech, who don't censor, who take it seriously, who don't call the cops on people for exercising their free speech, who don't petition corporations to censor the speech of people that they disagree with. Support those auditors. That's all I can suggest. That's all I can ask. Anyway, I think I've rambled long enough. This is probably like almost 20 minutes of me rambling about free speech, but hey, I like the topic. So, yeah. Remember, if you trade security for liberty, or if you trade liberty for security, you'll gain neither and lose both, I think is the phrase. That goes as far as speech too. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.